Yoyo Pit Cave Incident. Joseph Lobato was 29 years old and thought of himself as adventurous and confident. He had taken his girlfriend on a few small climbing trips in the past. Joseph convinced her and himself that he knew what he was doing. In reality, his experience was very limited, and he had no real caving knowledge. He decided to visit Yoyo Pit near Santa Fe with his girlfriend. Yoyo Pit was a remote, ancient volcanic vent with a 130-foot vertical drop. At some point during their visit, Joseph dropped his cell phone into the pit. He was determined to get it back. Joseph went back to his vehicle and grabbed a collection of gear. He took a heavy-duty chain and 2 ropes. None of this equipment was intended for climbing or rappelling. Joseph told his girlfriend that he knew what he was doing, though she was uneasy. The rope wasn't meant for life-saving purposes. His knots were poorly tied. When he began his descent, he slid awkwardly with the rope beneath him. It was clear things weren't going as planned. After a few feet, he switched to going down hand over hand, but his grip was slipping and soon he lost control. As he tumbled toward the bottom, he let out a nervous laugh. His girlfriend, still watching from above, heard his voice echo up from the pit. She recalls that Joseph was laughing all the way as he fell to the bottom. However, the laughter soon gave way to serious reality. At first, he joked about breaking his arm. He tried to reassure both himself and his girlfriend that he was still okay. But moments later, his voice changed. Pain spread through his body, sharp and constant. His back began to seize up. He quickly realized that something was very wrong. As minutes passed, numbness spread through his body. He could no longer feel his back. Soon, paralysis set in. With panic rising, Joseph told his girlfriend he couldn't move. His girlfriend was forced to drive back over rough terrain, desperately searching for help. After hours, she found a payphone and called 911. By the time rescue teams arrived, Joseph had gone silent. Rescuers rappelled into the pit and discovered that he had died from his injuries. His body was carefully placed in a litter and lifted out. This marked the tragic end to a poorly prepared adventure that could have been avoided. Tenerife Lava Tube Cave Incident. On Saturday, February 10th, 2007, 9 people gathered on Tenerife Island for a hike. They planned to hike through a lava tube that connected 2 valleys. Lava tubes are tunnels formed by old volcanic eruptions. By 2 p.m., they reached a mountain with 2 options: go over it or through it. Since the hike was meant to be easy, they chose to go through a lava tube. However, they entered the wrong tube. They didn't have an experienced guide and relied on directions sent by phone. The group went deeper into the lava tube, believing it was the right path. By 3 p.m., they were over a mile inside the mountain. Something felt wrong. Several hikers fainted one after another. 5 out of 9 people lost consciousness. Those near the back felt dizzy as well. They managed to turn around and escape. At 4:45 p.m., the people who escaped called emergency services. Rescuers quickly arrived. The hikers who escaped reported a strange gas smell just before the others passed out. Rescuers needed to be careful. The narrow tube was only about 6 feet wide and high at its largest point. This made the rescue challenging. Some unconscious hikers woke up and walked out, but by 5,000 feet into the tunnel, rescuers began to find those who hadn't woken up. The gas smell became stronger the further they went. Throughout the night and into the next morning, rescuers worked carefully. 4 hikers were airlifted to the hospital with breathing problems. 2 had more serious injuries due to the positions they passed out in. By February 11th, only 3 hikers remained inside. They had been leading the group and were the deepest in the cave. The concentration of gas was highest there. 20 hours after the hike began, the rescue took a tragic turn. The last 3 hikers were found dead from oxygen loss. Grim Reaper Cave Incident. 3 friends, Mark, Jason, and Luke, set out on a weekend caving trip. They wanted to explore the Grim Reaper Cave, known for its narrow, tight passages. The cave was famous for producing strange wailing sounds when wind blew through it. The group's preparation was poor. They had only cheap, flickering torches and no proper gear. As they crawled deeper into the cave, they realized the narrow tunnels were much tighter than expected. Mark noticed how the jagged rocks formed a twisted. The path was very tight and dangerous. Sharp edges jutted out, threatening to scrape anyone who passed through. Despite the clear risk, Mark pressed on. Mark was convinced he could squeeze through without getting caught. About 30 minutes in, disaster struck. Mark, who was leading the way, slipped and wedged himself between 2 jagged rocks. His body was squeezed so tightly that the rocks dug painfully into his sides. He couldn't move at all. Behind him, Jason was blocked completely. Jason's arm was pinned beneath Mark's body. The cave walls seemed to press in, growing narrower with every second. Luke, the last in line, realized how serious their situation was. He tried his best to free Jason, but his efforts didn't work. With Jason stuck just behind Mark, the situation seemed impossible. Luke could feel the air quality getting worse as the tunnel became more oppressive. If he didn't act quickly, Mark could suffocate and Jason would panic completely. Luke decided to leave his friends and go for help. The journey back would be long, and every second felt like a lifetime. Rescue efforts began the moment Luke reached the surface. He was breathless and frantic as he explained the situation to the local search and rescue team. Within an hour, a specialized cave rescue arrived. They had advanced tools designed for this type of rescue. Upon entering the cave, the rescue team used a device to measure air quality inside. The oxygen level levels were dropping dangerously. High concentrations of carbon dioxide were building up. The team went into the cave with specialized rock drills and inflatable air bladders. These air bladders could be placed between rock walls and slowly inflated. This would create just enough space to free the trapped body parts. Mark's chest was compressed by the rocks, making it difficult for him to breathe fully. The rescuers knew they needed to act fast to prevent internal injuries. The challenge was to widen the crevice without making the cave collapse. As the rescue team drilled into the surrounding rock, they carefully controlled vibrations. The rescuers started with Jason. They gently positioned a rescue harness around his body. Using a pulley system, they began pulling Jason backward. Jason could barely breathe with his chest pressing against the stone. After several tense minutes, Jason was finally pulled free. Now the rescuers could focus on Mark. Mark was wedged tightly between jagged rocks that pressed painfully into his sides. The team had to work quickly and precisely, and they inserted an air bladder to create enough space between Mark and the rock. Once the rocks were pried apart just enough, they slipped a rescue harness around Mark's body. With careful coordination, they applied steady tension using the rope system. Every tug was painful for Mark as his body scraped against the sharp stone. After what felt like an eternity, they finally pulled him free. He was bloodied and bruised, but alive. They quickly wrapped him in an emergency thermal blanket. Jason followed closely behind with his arms swollen but functional. As the men reached the surface, medics immediately treated them. Both were hypothermic and severely dehydrated, but alive. Wind Cave Incident. Rachel Cox was a college student who had been exploring Wind Cave National Park in South Dakota. Rachel and her classmates were learning about caves with their instructors. On this day, they were doing a practice search and rescue exercise. The students split into teams to find their instructors who were hiding in different parts of the cave. It was like a game of hide and seek, but in a real cave. Rachel thought she heard her instructor laughing from a nearby passage. They left their backpacks behind and crawled through a narrow tunnel to investigate. When they reached the spot, no instructor was there. Her teammate was upset with Rachel's decision and decided to go back. Rachel was also frustrated and paused for a moment before getting ready to follow him. That's when her lamp suddenly went out. In the complete darkness, Rachel realized she had made a big mistake by not checking her lamp's battery. Following what she had been taught, she decided to stay where she was and wait for help. But as time passed, she got impatient and decided to try crawling back through the tunnel. She felt around for the opening, squeezed through, and found herself in the wrong passage. Now she was even more lost than before. Without her backpack or working light, Rachel had no food, water, or warm clothes. She forced herself to keep moving to stay warm. She made as much noise as she could to help rescuers find her. Meanwhile, her classmates and instructors were searching the area where she had disappeared. Rachel tried to find her way back to where she got lost, but instead, she went deeper into the cave. As hours passed in the cold darkness, she got very hungry and thirsty. Her stomach hurt, and she felt weak and confused. The lack of food and water made Rachel's mind play tricks on her. She wasn't sure if the strange noises around her were real or just in her imagination. She began to hear whispers in the silence, like the cave was alive and talking to her. Time didn't seem to make sense anymore, and when the search went on with no sign of Rachel, the instructors called the park rangers. The National Park Service quickly brought in more cave experts. After about 30 hours of searching, the team looked in more remote parts of the cave. Finally, one of the rescuers heard Rachel calling for help. Rachel remembered seeing a light approaching, and then a man with a beard asking, "Rachel, are you ready to leave now?" She was so confused and tired that she replied, "Are you God?" It took another 2 hours to get Rachel out of the cave. She was weak, dehydrated, and mildly hypothermic, but she didn't have any serious injuries. Huccacove Cave Incident. On April 26, 1982, 21-year-old James May and his friends planned to explore Huccacove Cave in Colorado. James thought it would be easy. As they went deeper into Huccacove Cave, James and his friends got into a big argument. Maybe it was the stress of being in the narrow, cold, damp cave that made everyone upset. James got very angry and told his friends, "Leave me, I'll find my own way out." And that's exactly what his friends did. They were tired of James's outbursts, so they took him at his word and left. Maybe they thought he would follow them later, or maybe they thought being alone in the dark cave would teach him a lesson. But they left him there. Now James was alone deep inside the earth. At first, James enjoyed being alone. He moved forward, going deeper into the cave. His pride kept him from being scared at first. Hours passed. His friends were long gone, and the way out, which had seemed so simple before, was now impossible to find. He tried one passage, but it only led deeper into the cave. He turned back and tried another route, but that was a dead end too. James's confidence began to disappear. The cave was much bigger than he had thought, and now he was completely lost. James's throat was dry and his stomach hurt from hunger. The light from his flashlight seemed dimmer now. He sat down on a wet rock, pulled his knees to his chest, and started to panic. While James was struggling in the darkness, his friends didn't realize how much danger he was in. When he didn't show up on Sunday, they went back into the cave. They saw his headlamp in the distance. They thought he was fine and just being stubborn. Night came and went. Though in the cave, he couldn't tell time. James's flashlight died. He was was alone in complete darkness. He couldn't keep out the freezing cold of the deep cave. James was shivering and couldn't stop. His body temperature was dropping every minute. In desperation, James tried to make a fire. He burned everything he had. It wasn't until James's mother got worried about her son's disappearance that she called the El Paso Sheriff's Department. By Sunday night, rescuers started a search. Despite searching for 5 hours, they couldn't find any sign of James. On Monday around noon, hope came in the form of Barney Foster, someone who knew Huccacove Cave better than most people. He decided to look for James himself. While the rescue team was thinking about giving up, Foster wasn't willing to let the young man die in that cave. Foster went through the cave's narrowest passages. In a particularly tight space, he found the ash, the first sign of James. He kept going deeper into the cave. Then in a small room filled with large broken rocks, he heard it, a cough. James May was lying there on the cold stone floor and his body was covered in bruises and cuts. Foster gave him water. Slowly and carefully, they made their way out of the cave. James had survived 54 hours lost in the cave. James was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. He was suffering from severe dehydration, hypothermia, and exhaustion. He was spending weeks recovering. Lost Creek Cave Incident. On March 12, 2016, 4 best friends from high school decided to explore Lost Creek Cave in Tennessee. The group consisted of Jake Martinez, his girlfriend Chloe Thompson, Jake's best friend Alex Chen, and Alex's younger sister Maya. Maya had found information about Lost Creek Cave online and convinced the others it would be the perfect adventure. They told their parents they were going hiking for the day but didn't mention they planned to go deep into a cave system. Lost Creek Cave had a large entrance that looked inviting. The first part of the cave was easy to walk through with a wide passage and a small stream running along the floor. "This is awesome," Chloe said, as their lights revealed beautiful rock formations on the walls. For the first 30 minutes, everything was perfect. They followed the main passage. The temperature was cool but comfortable. About half a mile into the cave, they reached a place where the passage split into 3 different tunnels. Alex looked at his map, but the image was blurry and hard to read in the cave lighting. "I think we should go right," Alex said, studying the map. "That looks like it leads to the crystal chamber that Maya read about online." Maya was eager to find the famous crystal chamber with its sparkling formations. They took the right passage, which immediately became much narrower and more difficult to navigate. After 45 minutes of difficult travel, they emerged into a large chamber filled with amazing crystal formations. When they were ready to head back, they faced their first real problem. They saw 4 different openings leading out of the crystal chamber. In their excitement, they hadn't paid attention to which one they had entered through. After debating and trying different passages for over an hour, they had to admit the truth. They were lost. As their fear grew, the friends made poor decisions. They kept searching for the exit, leading them even further from the main cave system. Maya had a panic attack in a tight crawlway, and Alex slipped on wet rocks, badly spraining his ankle. They spent a miserable night underground, cold, hungry, and scared. Maya couldn't stop shivering, and Alex's ankle swelled badly. At 8:30 a.m., after 18 hours underground, the friends heard voices calling their names echoing through the cave passages. It took 45 minutes for rescuers to reach them because they were so far from the main cave system. When the rescuers arrived with warm blankets and food, Maya broke down crying with relief. The rescue took 3 hours because the friends had gotten themselves so deep into difficult passages. When they finally emerged into daylight, all 4 sets of parents were waiting with tears, hugs, and serious conversations about honesty and safety.